All right, here we go. It's about time. All right, let's get this show on the road. Hello. Hello, everyone. Greetings, adventurers. Welcome to the third episode of us creating our Theros campaign, Theros the Broken Chain. Um, Thing is, so I really wanted to get into the first chapter today and to actually, get into the thing we're here to do, which is actually write this thing out. Which, by the way, when we get to that point, this whole thing is probably going to slow down a bit because right now I've been talking about ideas I've already had and thought down and at least to some degree worked out. Of course, as I've said, a lot of them are changeable, but things that I've done prior to even deciding to stream all of this. So that's for the last two episodes, that's what I've been taking you through, and I believe that's all I'll be taking you through today. I'm actually not entirely sure if I have like way too much or way too little material for another hour, but I guess we'll see. So, what I wanted to do today is just look at just some of the broad strokes ideas of what I wanted to do with this campaign specifically, like from place to place, because as I've stated before, the campaign is going to be about the players going around trying to find these different 15 links of a great chain that can rebind the Titans again and seal them back in their prison. But each one of those chain links is representative of a specific god, one of the 15 gods of the pantheon, who nearly destroyed themselves in order to make it. Each golden chain is going to have these intricate carvings in it that will sort of represent what the god's all about. Like for example, Thassa's chain will have a lot of very intricate carvings of the sea and waves and things like that into this golden chain. And one thing that I wanted to have too, which I think I haven't worked it out, so I might stream me working through this, is each one of those chains I wanted to have it gives some sort of buff or power to the players that they could use if they have it. So nothing too powerful because they're already going to be very powerful, but just kind of a useful little thing. There's a thing that I've experimented with doing in past campaigns of trying to give the players items that aren't like immediately like it's not obvious how they're useful, but they open the players up to maybe using them creatively. Like a good item that I've thrown in a few campaigns and actually been kind of interested to see what players did with it was some sort of item that it's like a magical item that just emits a loud noise. And that's it. Like when you activate it, it makes a loud, either like some sort of metallic-y noise or something like that, whatever kind of noise you want it to make. And that's it. And yeah, on the face of it, that doesn't seem very useful. But then the players kind of started to think about it in certain situations, like, oh, we could use this as a signal. We could use this as a distraction. We could maybe if we meet some sort of creature or being that's blind, perhaps we could use it to confuse it if it relies on echolocation or something. Um, so things like that. I would like to do something like that with these chains that we get once we actually get them. But we'll think more about that later. But the thing is, the broad strokes of it is they need to find where these chain links are, and then go through some sort of temple or dungeon, I guess more accurately, related to the themes surrounding that specific god. So in order to get the chain link of Krufix, you must pass the trial of Krufix, because Krufix himself put that chain link there uh, in order to not only guard it, but also like someone who passed the trial could get it out in case it was needed. Um, so basically what we're talking about here is where the PCs, the player characters, I might slip up and say that a lot. When I say PC, I mean player character. Where the PCs might be going around the map, how they're going to get there, around what they're going to be doing. I have a bunch of ideas, and I'm just going to be going through them with you here. So as far as their actual path around Theros, because we have this wonderful Theros map here. So where are they going to start? Where are they going to go? Where is it going to end? Well, I have a rough idea that I crudely did in Photoshop here, and I believe, yeah, here we go. So yeah, I'm going to be going through this in more detail as I go through my actual ideas here. So, where I would like the players to start is in this little. Oh, you can't see my mouse. Can I get that on? I could, but I don't want to fool around with it right now. So, if you look where that purple line is, where you should not the top purple line, the white dot on the left of it. So these white dots are just representing sort of very vague specific locations. The lines going towards them and what their colors mean, as you can sort of see from the little legend on the side there, is how generally I expect them to be traveling. So my idea here is, first of all, I got to start at that dot at the left of the top purple line there, which will kind of just be in the middle of nowhere. It'll be in the northern fields, the Theros fields. Although maybe it's a little more Laguna fields. Um, oh no, I'm sorry. What am I even saying? So the first dot on the left, that's where the intro is going to take place. So the I mentioned in the last episode about a campsite that they're going to sort of find and go to. It's going to have a long dead shrine of Xenagos, and they're going to fall asleep there. They're going to go into a dreamlike state and be told their mission. And then when they wake up, they're going to be in essentially at the foot of the same shrine, but it will be where the right dot is on that top purple line. So they will kind of have teleported over to where they need to be. And this teleportation will not be given much explanation beyond, it's where they need to be, and the gods are working their magic. It's more to like instill a feeling in the players right off the bat that like, hey, the gods can do this. They could just send you anywhere they want. So you better fear them. Which you should, because the gods are essentially me, and the players should always fear me. You should always fear the DM when you're a player. That's just it's almost kind of the job. That's why we like it. Anyway, so when we get to the Northern Fares fields here, the right dot of the purple line here, that's when chapter one begins. So the way that I sort of organized which god we were going to do first was sort of based on some enemies that I was looking at. So there's certain enemies, like for example, the last chain link that I would like to get would be Thassa's, be the goddess of the sea, because there is a kraken monster. What is his name again? Oh, he's a beautiful boy. He hold on, let me I have a whole folder through full of this stuff. Uh Tromocratus. Is that his name? Let me open it up. Is that going to open up on this screen or the other one? Oh, there, this big boy. So he is like challenge rating 28, and he has like a legendary ability where you essentially can fight him twice. And I'm like, that's really tough. But I would really love for my players to do it. But he's really hard, so I'm going to be saving him as one of the last bosses, and thus Thassa will be one of the last. Will be the last chain link we get, and sort of I sort of organized all of them that way by looking at enemies and going, what would be a fun enemy to associate with each god and have sort of be a final boss for that chain link that they'll get. And then based on kind of the challenge rating or just kind of my thoughts about it is just kind of how I determined which one would be first and first, second, third, fourth, and so on. And also I just sort of cross-referenced that with maybe some places that would be a good place for the temple for the trial to be. Like again, going back to Thassa, her temple should be in the sea or on the coast somewhere. So like I had to do that. But Nylea's shrine needs to be in the woods somewhere. So we need to try to make that work. And what I have I think might be okay, but we'll have to see. But anyway, as I was saying, so the first chapter we're going to do is Crufix on the white dot on the right side of the top purple line there. And so my idea with that is they're going to be interacting because we're in the Northern Faerys Plains. They're going to be interacting with centaurs in some way. But I was thinking for the actual temple. Yeah, you know what? Actually, before I go further, I'm sorry. There's a lot of information leading up to this when I start talking about this. But again, I'm just trying to give you like a really good idea of where my head's at with all this. So when it comes to dungeons in Dungeons and Dragons, I or like any role playing game like it, I think there's kind of I don't know maybe three types you could generally classify them into. The first type is you would kind of see from the most amateurish type of DM, or maybe like if you ever randomly generate a dungeon, it'll usually feel like this at least, where it's just kind of like a bunch of disparate rooms with disconnected enemies that don't really relate to one another, or traps or whatever is in there, challenges of some sort that don't really relate to anything previous or after, and are all kind of disconnected from one another. I enter this room. We enter this room. The party fights Yetis. Then they enter this room, and there's a puzzle that they solve. Then they enter this room, and there's Minotaurs. And they enter this room, and there's goblins. There's not really too much of a rhyme or reason for it. It's just a series of challenges in a row. We're not going to be having any dungeons like that in this campaign because I don't really see the point. The second kind is the kind that you'll most often see people make, which is sort of a dungeon that tells a story of some kind. Like if you have a dungeon that is a den of goblins, there will be a good DM will craft that dungeon in that every room has a purpose of some kind, whether it just be storage or like yeah, here's where their storage is, here's where they sleep, here's where they cook food, here's and every room has that purpose, and so it tells a story to players as they're going through it, and those are great. We're gonna have a number of those as well. However, the the actual trial dungeons, those are going to be like big ones that we're leading up to in order to actually get the chain. And those are going to be a different kind. Where I stumbled across someone talking about this and it really intrigued me. And so I'm definitely going to adopt this idea where he was talking about you need to have, it's really good to have a dungeon gimmick where you can sort of attach different ideas to that gimmick and you can expand on it. And this will become more clear maybe as I explain these dungeons, but yeah, that is the type of dungeon that we're going to be trying to do for the specific trial dungeons to get the chain. And so I'm going to go through each one of those as we get to the location. And yeah, I'm just going to tell you location by location, god by god, what my general idea is and what my idea is for the actual trial. And yeah, we'll run through those, and I guess we'll see by the end how much of those ideas hold up. So, okay, anyway, getting back to Crufix. Yeah, so our first chapter will be with Crufix in Northern Faerys. So yeah, so the gimmick I wanted to have for Crufix's temple is, so Crufix is all about, he's the god of horizons. He is about uh, seeing unknown knowledge, vast amounts of knowledge, cosmic knowledge, the kind of knowledge that lies just beyond the horizon. He is a very mystical and all-knowing being. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting? That sort of made me think of like not so much knowing, but like seeing. And then I thought, what if Krufix's temple had like just an impenetrable darkness in it, like a magical darkness. Like even if you have dark vision, that doesn't work. You light a torch, that doesn't work. It's all enveloped by darkness. So what would make that dungeon really interesting, and this is what I'm sort of talking about when it comes to ideas that you can sort of attach on to this idea, is like, okay, the players are in a dungeon where they can't see at all. So the way that they'll be interacting with everything is going to change. They will be a lot more paranoid, probably, of noises. You could probably give them a lot of noises to make them paranoid. if you wanted to just have fun with them. Whenever they walk into a room, they will never be asking what they see because the answer will be nothing. You're going to have to be It's going to be interesting and different to more describe to the players a lot what it is they're feeling or smelling or hearing or anything like that. And so you can play with that too. Just trying to use every sense but sight in order to craft the environment for them. And also, what could be fun with that is because it's a magical darkness, we can sort of have exceptions. So maybe, let's say, we have a room with a puzzle, and part of the puzzle is there's a little lens that the players can look through. And when they look through that specific lens, they can actually see through the darkness as if it wasn't there. But they can only see like maybe one specific thing that's like a clue to what they need to do. Stuff like that. Also, if we have enemies in this dark dungeon, the darkest dungeon, if you will, um, that will be incredibly difficult, and we could actually throw probably some pretty easy enemies at them, as long as they have their own kind of dark vision, or they're given some exception to the darkness somehow. Maybe they're blind. Maybe they don't need to see. Um, the one monster that intrigued me for Krufik specifically was a Nothic. Now, a Nothic, I'm not sure would make a great boss. It's only challenge rating 2. However, the players will be playing this when they're going through this dungeon. They'll probably be about level 1, 2, maybe 3. So I guess we could have a few Nothics. Maybe I'd rather not. Maybe just a Nothic in the darkness would work because a Nothic has true sight, and I'm thinking that that might be the thing that can penetrate the darkness. Normal dark vision, no, but maybe true sight, you can do it. And so, yeah, maybe they'll fight the Nothic. Maybe they don't have to fight the Nothic. Maybe the Nothic is more of a sympathetic character, because a Nothic is someone who has been burdened with a great secret, great knowledge, and that knowledge has like physically changed them into this grotesque, one-eyed looking thing. Excuse me. So yeah, for Krufix, yeah, that'd probably be about it. They'd go through the temple, they get the chain. Once they get the chain, the darkness would probably dissipate, and they'd be able to leave. And then, of course, in all of these cases, we throw one of the Titanic cults in there somewhere to try and stop them. Um, Either they're like at that early stage, though, maybe they'll be just sort of more incidentally there, and then maybe, yeah, that would be good actually. Now that I think about it, so the Titan cults are just kind of doing their thing. They're doing their destructive thing. The players are going to be doing their thing, and eventually, but I mean, the players are going to kind of know about the Titan cults already, but the Titan cults are eventually going to kind of like catch on to what it is the players are actually doing, and then go, oh, and they're going to get more and more, be more wanted enemies to the Titan cults. But in the beginning, maybe the Titan cults don't immediately identify them as an enemy. They identify them as just, random people in their way. But yeah, there's a purple line there from those two because they'd be teleported from that to the other. After Krufix's chapter, we would walk or just, travel across land, across that green line from the northern Fares Plains in order to Data Harbor. And Data Harbor is where we would have our Phenax chapter. Phenax being the trickster god, the god of deception. Hold on. I have them out of order on this other document I'm reading here, as to what my ideas are. Yes, so Data Harbor. So Data Harbor, from what I understand, is controlled by Meletus, but it's kind of I don't know that they explicitly say this, but I'm going to make it up a little more and say that it's a bit more of a wretched hive of scum and villainy, compared to Meletus. And so, what a perfect place for Phenax to hide his chain link near. So, I'm thinking, yeah, we're going to go to Data Harbor. There's going to be some sort of dealings with smugglers, criminals. Maybe you got to get in on their good side. Yeah, that would be good. That would be a good way to like make the players do some sort of heist or something where they like have to commit a crime. Like they don't have any choice. So if they're a player who likes committing crimes, they'll be on board. If they don't, they'll still do it anyway. Um, and yeah, maybe you have to gain someone's trust, something like that. Although Fenax is greatly associated with the Returned, the very specific type of undead that Theros has. So I definitely want to involve the Returned and the Theros chapter. And what I really wanted to do with Fenax, his gimmick, the gimmick with his dungeon, is I wanted to sort of have, if anyone's played Legend of Zelda, like something like Ocarina of Time or something like that, you remember the Shadow Temple. You had a lot of these things that were fake. These like illusions of illusionary walls that weren't there, or things that were there and were invisible, including things like enemies and traps and things that could kill you. Just all these things were either invisible when they were there or visible when they weren't. And so you needed a lens of truth in that game in order to see what was real and what wasn't. So with the Fenex chapter, I'm thinking that we will have essentially a mask, one of the returned masks that again, okay, for anyone who doesn't know, the returned, these specific types of undead have these golden masks that they specifically craft in order to become what they are. And while these masks are solid gold, like they're not very valuable in the sense that only very shady characters would ever want one. They're considered to be cursed items. But a specific mask maybe of I'm thinking that maybe Fenax had a follower, a specific follower, an oracle perhaps, that of course when he died became a returned and was perhaps entrusted with the knowledge of where the chain was, something to that effect. And the players are going to need to find him, get his mask, and use that specific mask of this devout servant of Fenax in order to find their way through his trials and to get his chain link in the end. From there, from Data Harbor, we can sail up through the blue line here, sail up the what is it called? The Data River to Akros. I believe that's the next place we just go. We just go straight to the major polis of Akros for our next chapter, which I believe would be for. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so the next chapter would be for Iroas. Iroas, the god of victory. Oh, I had pictures. I'm sorry. Yeah, Crufix is right here. He's the guy who the first chapter was about, the one with the Dark Temple. And then Fenax, our god of deception. He's the one who, yeah, I had the idea of getting the gold mask, having the lens of truth. Then, yeah, we'd sail up the river to Akros to get the chain of the god Iroas, the god of victory. So he loves his honorable combats, his Olympic game type competitions. So yeah, so my idea would have them maybe in the beginning of the scenario, them being involved in some sort of gladiatorial combat, and it doesn't necessarily matter if they win. Maybe sort of the high-ranking fighters will eventually become allies of theirs, and like whether they win or not, they'll still kind of help them as long as the players are honorable about it. Um, but they need to, yeah, so having some gladiatorial combat would be really great and on theme. But for the actual trial, I was thinking again sort of related to Iroas having a devout follower in the past, that this follower, that the trial is takes place inside that warrior's tomb. So the players would probably have to go in there, and I'm thinking maybe they have to, like, his arm, he doesn't have his armor or in his shield, like he's buried without those things, and maybe his sword too. And like perhaps they're scattered throughout the temple in different challenges, and the players have to go and get his armor, his helmet, his sword, and his shield, and then put them back into his tomb, his coffin with him. And then maybe that'll release the chain or open the way. Yeah, that yeah. Oh, and I was also thinking, yeah, maybe the armor pieces too. When the players are carrying them, they might have some sort of either positive or negative effects. Um, I'm not sure which. Maybe both. Maybe like benefits and drawbacks. Maybe the boots. Um, or like if you let's say there were boots as one of those armor items, like maybe they make you immune to being knocked down or something, but they have your speed because they're really heavy or something like that. And so the players are going to have to be selective as to who is carrying what, because they want it to affect them as negatively as little as possible. Um, right. So after Iroas, then we'd be yeah, because that's an Akros up here. We would then the next chapter would be Heliod. Oh yes, Heliod. Yes, yes. So Heliod, the god of the sun here, is who I was thinking of next. And the way that we would, so this the green line might be a little deceptive from Akros to Mount Cure. Is that how you pronounce it? I'll call it Mount Cure. Why not? Uh, right. So that might be a little deceptive because what I'd really like for them to do is get from Akros into the plains of Oreskos here, where this is where the Leonin mainly come from, and perhaps even get to the city of Tethmos there, but then eventually get up to Mount Cure because that is where the actual Temple of Heliod will be. Again, there's always going to be a little bit of build up before we actually get to the temple and the trial. So that's kind of just what I'm talking about here. First part, Oreskos, maybe Tethmos. Second part, where we actually get to the trial, Mount Cure. And so the gimmick that I wanted for Heliod's temple had to do with sunlight. Essentially, it was. I was thinking you just have a bunch of sunlight. Again, a little bit going back to Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time a little bit. If you remember the Spirit Temple, they had a bunch of light sources that you had to deflect with mirrors and things like that. And I think that that would be a great little gimmick that you could stick some other ideas onto because well, you can have the puzzle get more and more complex as we go on. We can maybe have some, perhaps the sunlight and diverting the sunlight could be used as a weapon or to weaken some enemies that are within the temple. Maybe there are some enemies that specifically don't like sunlight. Maybe we go into a room without sunlight. We have to get sunlight in there somehow, but until we do, there's some enemy in there that, as long as it's in total darkness, can just wreck your shit. Um, Again, yeah, there's a lot of things we can do with that. We can have a lot of interesting visuals with sunlight being beamed and reflected everywhere. We could use sunlight to heat something up, kind of like what you can do with a magnifying glass. That'd be interesting. We could use light to, oh, what else could we do? Oh, we could refract white light into colors. That would be interesting too. And maybe we have to move those colors around as part of a puzzle, like with a prism. See, there's all these things we can do if we just think about it the right way. Um, yeah, so that's the my idea for the Heliod trial. Um, Next, moving on. Now we'd be walking through the Catachthon Mountains. Yeah, I can pronounce it. Down to about here, and yeah. So the reason that I have this line going right through the mountains is because I'd kind of want this to be a journey through the mountains. Because the next chapter would be for Clothis. Clothis is the goddess of destiny, and the one previously in charge of keeping hold of the Titans. And her relationship with the Titans is a little more obvious, and so the Catachthon Mountains are, as I detailed in the last chapter, are sort of the headquarters for all four of the Titan cults. So what I want this chapter to sort of be is the players are going through the mountains. They're seeing the Titan cults. They're still building themselves up. They're not at their full strength yet. They won't be at their full strength until much later. But they're still at a point where the players can't stop them, or it would be stupid for them to try, but they can see the threat building with their own eyes. and they're going to have to avoid these patrols of Titan cults in and around the mountains, and they're eventually going to, travel through all of that in order to get to the very end point at the end of that green line, which will be the Temple of Clothis and the trial of Clothis to get her chain. They may want to have a guide through the mountains. It would be funny if, like, well, not haha funny, but it would be fun if, like, that guide was actually Clothis in disguise, or perhaps an Oracle of Clothis, who, like, oh, maybe kind of like how Clothis is depicted. Maybe they're blind, but they can still see the way. They follow the threads of fate, and so on. Oh, yeah, that would be fun, actually. Maybe, now that I think about it more, maybe I'm thinking of like an old lady or an old man or something like that with a blindfold on, and they are one of the few remaining servants of Clothis, because there aren't many. Because Clothis is, even for one of these gods, she's particularly distant. But maybe this person seems to, even though they're blind, they seem to almost know everything that's going to happen. So, like, they never get hit with an arrow because they're always able to just dodge their head right at the last second and have it not hit them. They always seem to know what's going to happen next and be able to walk away safely from any encounter that they are in. That would be really fun. We may do something like that. But the actual trial of Clothis, my idea for that was, I mean, like, it was a little, I feel a little, it feels a little uninspired, but it will probably work pretty well. Where, yeah, the temple to Clothis will be particularly abandoned and ruined, as they should be, it's said that they all should be. But I was thinking, yeah, you'd have some sort of thing where you have to thread some sort of ethereal needle through certain, like, hoops, essentially. You get some sort of, yeah, maybe you get some sort of, like, big, I don't know, big, like, heavy, yeah, maybe it's really heavy. Maybe it's like cumbersomely heavy stone needle, and it, like, starts from a certain point, and there's like an ethereal thread that sort of follows after it, and you need to thread this big stone or metal needle through these hoops. But you can't have the thread cross over at any point because then it breaks or something like that. And then maybe you got to go back, not to the beginning, maybe to the last hoop. I'm not sure if this is making a lot of sense as I'm saying this. But, like, if the players have to go through room to room, threading this a needle through these hoops while making sure to not cross over the needle, sorry, the thread that they've already strung, that imposes some interesting movement limitations on them that maybe we could play with. Maybe we have them walking across very narrow passageways that they have to balance on, and it would be really convenient for them to be able to walk through this thread that they're trying to pull, but they can't because then it'll break, and then it's back to the beginning of this challenge or the specific, the specific bridge that they were walking over or whatever it is. Having to try to fight enemies while having that movement restriction. Maybe they need to keep the enemies away from the thread too, because maybe if the enemies break it, then it's back to the next checkpoint. That could be interesting too. So yeah, being a theme of being careful with the threads of destiny, maybe if you want to interpret it that way. I don't know. But yeah, okay, so that's Clothis. The next one, so yeah, the idea is from there, we'd probably find some sort of boat nearby to get passage down the river here. What is it called? Oh, I painted over it. Wait, let me, what's it called here? Spirch, Spirch River? No, that can't be what it is. Sperche? Sperche, I'm gonna call it that. The Sperche River, uh, down this blue line, which connects to the orange line here. So yeah, that one we would sail down there and down the river, have some adventures there, and then we would get to the chapter for Athreos. Athreos is the god of passage who guides the living across the river Tartix into the underworld. If Charon the boatman from Greek mythology was a god, that's That's Athreos. So we're gonna have his chapter at a place called the Cypress Gates, and I thought that would be a good place because in passing through those gates, that's passage. A lot of Athreos imagery and ritual is based on that sort of thing of like passing a threshold, crossing a threshold, uh, passage from one place to another. So does Crufix weirdly too. Like you guys have a lot of horizon imagery, so it's like over the horizon, across the barrier. I don't know, but anyway, the Cypress Gates will be where we'll do that, and the main crux of that was I was imagining that you know what? It actually escapes me right now what this. I'm drawing a blank as to what the Cypress Gates even are and what they actually do. But I want to either have them be or have. God, let me say this better. I want to either have the Cypress Gates be an entrance to the underworld, or I want an entrance to the underworld to be near the Cypress Gates. And so the chapter will take place in the underworld in order to get the chain. That's where Athreos hid it. They're gonna have to have a little adventure in the underworld, maybe sailing across the river Tartix for a while, in order to get to the temple of Athreos to get his chain link. Excuse me. And for Athreos, I had one of the first ideas that I ever had that was actually I sort of stole from the guy who told me about that whole third type dungeon idea. So the idea is so Athreos again, god of passage. I wanted to have a theme based on like lanterns. And like so because lanterns, they guide your way in dark. Because yeah, the temple would be dark, and you'd have these lanterns to guide your way. Although that might not be useful to some players because they might have dark vision, they might have whatever. But that's not really the point of the lanterns. The point of the lanterns is that they are of different colors, right? You got. I'm not sure how many you'd have. Just maybe the big three, red, blue, yellow, maybe, or if we can always go as high as six. Put the orange, purple, green in there, but so different colors of light can matter in this dungeon in terms of like maybe there's a hidden message on a wall and you need to shine a specific color of light over it in order to reveal it, or maybe a specific combination of colors in order to see the secret message. You need to shine certain colors of light, again, or combinations of colors of light, on certain doors for them to open. You need to set certain. You could have puzzles where we're setting certain lanterns down in certain places in order to open the way, and then set, like we need to set certain colored lanterns down in specific locations to solve a puzzle. Also, again, much like the Heliod temple. Maybe there's some creatures in there that don't like light. Maybe those lights or those specific colors of lights might be able to fend off certain enemies or attract certain enemies. Maybe there's some specific magical auras that are given off by these lanterns that could either repel or attract certain enemies. Um, and that's basically the gimmick behind that. So again, there's a lot of ideas we can glom onto that and have. And of course, with the lanterns, they're going to have to go to different places to get them. So there's going to have to be little trials they're going to have to undergo just to get the lanterns in order to proceed forward. So that'll work. After that's done, see, I have this orange line here. I was thinking that they would travel through the underworld, but they wouldn't get out where they came in. They would get out somewhere else. And I was thinking they would get out in the Despair Lands down here, near the city of Asphodel, which is where a lot of returned reside. It's one of the two big places where like the undead cities. It's where all the returned are. One is Asphodel, the other one is up here, Odunos. But we'd be going to Asphodel, specifically in the Despair Lands. And the reason for that would be because the Despair Lands have all these undead. I would like having the players kill a bunch of undead would be nice because that would be in line with what Erebos wants. But in the Erebos chapter, I was thinking that the main gimmick of that temple would be that they would get some sort of coffin. The players would. some coffin that they need to transport and like do some funeral rites for and entomb. Although the funeral rites are a bit more Athreos, but whatever. Maybe we can skip over those. But yeah, like some sort of coffin containing a body that's really heavy that maybe the players have to lug up to some sort of yeah, to the Temple of Erebos, and like with this coffin. Oh yeah, again, maybe the coffin is of a devout follower of Theros, of Erebos. I mean, they have to use that coffin as sort of like a puzzle piece, insert it somewhere to unlock the chain and get it. So I'm thinking, okay, so they got this heavy coffin that's very weighty, so that could be good as a yeah, cumbersome thing, or maybe they have to, maybe there's like a speed test where they have to get through a door in a certain amount of time, but they can't because there's this huge heavy coffin they have to lug around, and maybe they have to find some sort of clever solution. I thought maybe what if the coffin floats and they could float on the coffin if there was some sort of water puzzle. They could use the coffin as a counterweight for some sort of pulley mechanism. They could have the coffin hold down a switch that they need held down, or they could, yeah, prop it up against something. They need to be propped up. They need to be held up. Yeah, if there's a portcullis coming right down on our heads, shove the coffin underneath it. There you go. It'll keep it open. Something like that. That would be a lot of fun, I think. And then yeah, we'd have a very like undead filled dungeon, I bet. The I haven't been going through the bosses. I've been thinking for a lot of these. Well, for some of them they're a bit up in the air, but and some of them, to be honest, some of them I don't remember. I don't remember what the the hell for the Heliod chapter. I was thinking a boss to maybe be like a griffin or something, because maybe they'd be up on the mountain. For Clothis, I don't remember what we do. Probably just some high-ranking Titan cult members for the boss fight there. For the Athreos chapter, oh yeah, I was thinking he has a Cerberus somewhere down there. Athreos does. That would be good to fight as a final boss to get his chain. And for the Erebos chapter, I there's a specific legendary harpy. I remember her. She's like challenge rating 5, I think. She's one of the. Hold on, I've got this. I can do this. Yes, there she is. If her picture opens, Ephemia. Yeah, yeah. So she is. Yeah, challenge 5, Harpy. So yeah, I don't want to throw her at the enemies too late because she's only challenge rating 5. But even still, so she supposedly and her ilk hang out in the Despair Lands. So perhaps she, for whatever reason, doesn't want the players to succeed. Maybe she's gotten involved with one of the Titan cults. Maybe she's sympathetic towards them and doesn't want the, because at this point, yeah, the players would have gotten what, one, two, three, four, five, six uh, chain links already. At this point, the Titan cult could definitely be taking notice of them and be trying to recruit maybe some more colorful individuals like harpies in order to stop the players. So yes, after that one, they would get the chain link of Erebos. Oh, I'm sorry, Erebos. There he is, God of the Dead. Yep. All right. Moving on. Yes, so from the Despairlands, then they would take a long walk up here along the coast to Miletus. So yeah, they'd get to the main polis of Miletus, and of course, who else? Who else's chain could be in Miletus but the goddess Ephara, the goddess of no, not you. In fact, we'll close you down. Goddess of the polis. So, for Ifara, okay, I have two ideas for Ifara. One, yeah, definitely for her temple, would involve jugs of water, or sorry, amphoras. I believe that's what that is called. Amphoras of water, that you gotta fill them with water, you gotta carry them, you gotta dump them out, you gotta maybe weigh them, make sure that two amphoras are the same weight, or that many different amphoras are different weights of water. Um, There's maybe one amphora filled with water that you got to carry a very long way without spilling it. All those things. We could do all those things in Afara's temple. And also, Afara is very much about like knowledge and philosophy and things like that. I'd like to put a lot more like maybe some more thinky puzzles in Afara's temple, some more like maybe logic puzzles or things like that. Or you know what would be good for Afara actually? So there are those little puzzle things that you can read that like it's like read this story and then tell me why this man is guilty of this crime that he says he didn't do. Like something like that, where it's like kind of a logic puzzle, because Afara likes justice and like judicial things. So like something like that would fit her MO as well. Is like, yeah, a big written out story, and then you have to explain why the person who professed his innocence why was this person who it seems like was guilty was framed. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. And then that'll open the way or something like that. Um, but there was another part to the Afara chapter that I've had in my mind for so long, and I really want to get it out once we get there. So there was an old video game that I used to play called Rise of the Argonauts, and there's only one. It wasn't the greatest game, but it had one moment that really stuck with me, where you have to have this like formal debate in like a Greek forum with a guy. And your dialogue choices actually determine whether or not you win or lose the debate. It doesn't actually matter in the end because it just comes down to a fight, which would actually be a pattern I'd be okay with replicating here, because you can't trust the players to be that smart. It should just probably end with a fight when all else fails. Um, but yeah, having something like that where like you have some sort of villain who the players have to have some sort of formal debate with, and that whether they succeed or fail in that debate, maybe it could just gain them some more godly favor. It could maybe earn them some like political allies in Miletus, depending on like what exactly they're debating about. Yeah, I don't know what they would be debating about. But I think like yeah, the main twist would be that the person that they're debating with, it turns out, is like a Scotha cultist. It's like, oh, he was a bad guy, which maybe would maybe isn't really a twist. Maybe they'd see that coming. Maybe, oh yeah, maybe it's like they know he's a Scotha cultist, but they can't prove it. Maybe he's too clever, and then maybe defeating him in this debate would somehow prove it. I don't know. Maybe damage his credibility. I don't know. We'll think more about it. It's again, a lot of this is just nuggets of ideas. We're going to be expanding on this so much more later. Um, but we got to move on because actually, yeah, we may be running out of time. Um, so right, so on from Miletus, we go way back up here. Yeah, you see, this is the only part where I'm like, is this too long? I don't know. See, like some of these journeys may be just too long. I had a big problem in my last campaign with really trying to. Okay, actually, let me explain myself. So I ran a Dragon Age campaign way back in the day where I actually went through every single day that the players traveled. I thought it was kind of neat to every day there'd be at least some sort of thing that they'd see, some sort of encounter or challenge that they would face. But it ended up with me relying on like random tables to generate that stuff. And I'm gonna expand on this later, but I really don't like random tables that you roll on. Like in all of my years of experience as a DM, random tables, I don't know, I just find them time consuming, and like the result always feels kind of artificial to me. It always feels like something that was randomly generated. I much prefer to just plan it out every single step of the way. If your characters are going to be making a journey that you know is going to take 5 days, don't for me, for my money, I'm not going to have them be in random encounters throughout those 5 days. Yeah, don't make a random table of encounters that they could have for those 5 days. Just write out what they're going to do in those 5 days. Day one, they're going to see this. They're going to have this encounter. How does it turn out? I don't know. We'll prepare for that. Day two, they're going to see this. Day three, they'll see nothing. Don't roll for it, just have it happen. And then you can plan it out and have it, really feel right as far as the pacing goes because you planned it out. It's not up to chance. Uh, but yeah, sorry, that rant is over. But this journey from Miletus back up to nearby to the Titan Stairs. We're not actually going to the Titan Stairs, but it's nearby to it. I fear may be too long, so I'm probably not going to be going through every day of the players' journeys. I may be cutting some days out, or at the very least, let's just sort of brush over some non-eventful days. I'd like to maybe have prepare a lot of things like that. A lot of, excuse me again. Sorry. Prepare a lot of like little random things, inconsequential things that they could see that maybe I could pull from just when I'm planning things out, and writing them out. Like, I don't know. Today you see a rock that looks like a face, and everyone had a laugh about it. And then sometimes the players will expand on that, and they'll go, "Oh, does it look like this player? Ha ha ha! Yes, it did. Oh, everyone will. You get a running joke from then on. The guy whose face looks like a rock. It could be fun. Anyway, little thing like, oh, you see some clouds today that remind you of a ship sailing by, things like that, or a merchant who had a particularly beautiful wife that caught your eye, who passed by you on the road, little things like that. And if the players wanted to stop and say like, you know what, I want to interact with that merchant, you let them. You gotta improv it, of course, but you let them. Just try not to, let anything get. I just hope that the players are smart enough not to let anything get too far. Like don't like. I hope they're not murder hobos that want to just rob the merchant as soon as they see him. You know. But that really comes down to choosing the right people for your players. But right, we're moving on to the next chapter from Miletus would be we're going up to a mountain because that would be the chapter of Kyranos, the god of storms. So we want to go up to a very high mountain where there's a lot of thunder and lightning and things like that. Uh, which I'm just gonna say that that's this mountain. This mountain doesn't have any particular significance, but I'm gonna give it some significance. And the reason that I am going to do that is just because we need to get from here in the last chapter to here in the next chapter, and that's a long way. And I would really prefer to have somewhere a little bit in between, uh, as the chapter in between there. So the next chapter will be, yeah, Kyranos, God of Storms. And the idea I have for that is just, yeah, at some point they're going to have to climb to a high mountain. I'm thinking at the top of that mountain, a storm giant will probably live. And I'm thinking, I have this idea of this storm giant being in this, like, great mechanized, like, laboratory where he kind of, like, I don't know, harnesses lightning or like collects lightning either in these like little containers or like maybe in these like lightning crystals that he charges and stuff like that. And so the players are going to have to maybe the giant's sleeping, maybe he's roaming around and the players are gonna have to avoid him. Maybe he's sleeping at first, but the players could wake him up. But they're gonna have to navigate through his laboratory and they can like because the lightning will constantly be striking these places or this place. So like they could insert these crystals into like a little machine. It charges the crystal with lightning. They take it out. They insert it into another machine. That powers the machine that they need to progress forward. But maybe like yeah, the more machines they turn on, the more that the laboratory starts working, the bigger chance that the giant might wake up, and he would not be friendly to deal with. Maybe there's a few giants in there. Maybe there's a family of giants. That might be kind of fun. Maybe the kid giant spots them and they're like, "Oh, what do we do? Do we kill the giant kid?" No, they really shouldn't. No, the children will never die in this story. They will always live. Uh, I just want to get that on stream. The children always live. Uh, right. What else? What else are we doing? Yes, Kyranos. That was the Kyranos chapter. Yes, and then after that we have the Mogus chapter. And the thing is, yeah, this was the part where I had the biggest like oh no moment was this giant green line from below Akros here up to Skolphos up here. Because when it comes to the Mogus chapter, Mogus, by the way, is this guy, the god of slaughter, and it is said that Minotaurs specifically have a close relationship, or tend to have a close relationship with Mogus. And if you're gonna have a place where his chain would be located, it's got to be near Skolphos somewhere, because Skolphos is the Minotaur city. So we kind of got to get there. Now, I put a green line here for walking, but we could very well sail across some of this river here. Yeah, instances like this, we may be skipping a bunch of time in terms of the traveling. I just hope that that doesn't read as inconsistent to the players. Or maybe if there's something we can do to make it work, because we have side quests that we're going to be putting in to this campaign, and maybe just like the longer the road from one thing to another, the more side quests we put in between. The players, I also want to have their own side quests, have their own little like arcs. Uh, but shoving a bunch of them in there might seem a bit transparent. I don't know. This is something we're going to have to grapple with as we go forward in this campaign. But on the other hand, I may be thinking too much. It may just be fine. But the Mogus chapter, yeah. Um, that chapter I'm thinking would involve some sort of arena, kind of like Mogus. You go into some sort of fighting arena, though not like a sanctioned one, because if Mogus has a fighting arena, you're gonna bet it's gonna be the bloodiest, most back alley arena you've ever seen. But yeah, his temple. I was thinking that there'd be some cyclopses. They'd be some fun enemies. To have sort of block the way to the temple. The players can deal with them somehow, either by tricking them or killing them or whatever. And then when they get to the temple, it would, yeah, be some sort of arena where I'm thinking a bunch of, because there's creatures that are called Nyxborn, where they're physical creatures, but they were created by gods, and so they have this starry look to them. And I was thinking, yeah, in the Mogus arena, the players would have to just fight like wave after wave of Nyxborn enemies. It'd probably be a very difficult fight because you kind of want them to get to that point of desperation, and then maybe. Although maybe the final boss is like I was thinking there'd be like a big Mogus statue overlooking the whole thing. Maybe that statue comes to life at the end, and that's the final enemy. Um, Something like that. But yeah, basically they're just gonna in sort of a what do you call it when you're surviving wave after wave of enemies. There's a name for that. Well, whatever. That sort of thing. They do that, they'll get the chain with Mogus. Next chapter, we'd be going down to, yes, Mount Velus. I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, Mount Velus. Because I was reading through the lore and I realized that there is a dragon in Mount Velus. And Mount Velus would be the chapter. This would be the chapter for Perforos, the god of the forge. So according to the lore, Perforos's forge is not in the mortal realm, it is in Nyx, the realm of the gods, but he used to have a forge in the mortal realm, which is Mount Velus. And the one who keeps watch over that is the dragon. What is his name? Oh, God. Okay. I can't go looking for him right now. We're too short on time. But the dragon. There's a dragon, a named dragon that guards that old forge. And I was thinking, well, that'd be a perfect place for the chain. It's a thing that Perforos crafted in his forge. Why not keep it in there? So they're going to have to go and challenge the dragon somehow for that chain link. They're not going to kill the dragon. They're just going to challenge him for it, and then when they defeat him, he will give it up honorably. And I'm thinking maybe they like enter the forge. It's all lava-y, and it's got all these masterwork items. The dragon flies down. He says, "What do you want?" They say, "We wish to challenge you for the chain." And he says, "Okay, meet me on the top of the mountain, like the snowy mountain." and it'll be kind of like it might be a battle kind of like Skyrim, if ever anybody remembers like the dragon battle you had on the top of the mountain that one time. It would be neat. But then, yeah, once they defeat the dragon, I have this red line here because I'm thinking the dragon will then fly them to their next destination. Because again, that is a really long distance to travel. It kind of goes through where we've traveled already. It would be really fast and really cool if the players just flew on the back of a dragon from Mount Velos to Amatraphon, where the next chapter would be. And after that, yeah, I'm wondering if I'm going to run out of time. Maybe we can go overtime. We're not too far from being done here. So after Perforos, we would go to Amatraphon at the edge of the Nessian Wood, and at that place is where we would have our chapter for the goddess Nylea, the goddess of the hunt, where we would be, yeah, in the wilderness. We get thrown. Oh, the dragon Thraxus is his name. Um, yeah, so they would find that the chain link is in a temple deep inside the Nessian Wood. Oh, and they have their the boss I was thinking for this one would be a villain known as Arasta. She is a spider creature. Oh my God, where? There she is. I keep losing my place. Yes, Arasta, this spider lady, who I'm thinking. So she, in her lore, used to be a friend of Nylea's, but then was tricked by Fanax into becoming this. But I think just I'm gonna have her thing be she has a lot of anger against the gods, and so she's actually thrown her lot in with the Titans now. Now that the Titan cults are becoming more numerous, she's thrown her lot in with them, and thus she wants to stop anyone from getting the Nylea's chain. And so the players are going to have to defeat her, which she's very powerful. That will be her. She is challenge rating 21, so that'll give you an idea of about where I want the level of the players to be at this point. Um, so yeah, they'll go to her temple. They'll be really deep in the dark woods where they'll meet a bunch of spiders and Arasta. They'll beat her, get the chain. Cool. And then come out of the woods, probably straight back to Amatraphon, and then they can have a passage there to the polis of Setessa, which is where the next chapter would be. And Setessa is where we go from Nylea to the goddess Karametra, the god of the harvests. So Karametra likes domesticated land, farmland, that sort of thing. Setessa, the polis of Setessa specifically has a strong relationship with Karametra. And for Karametra, see, they also have these things called the nexuses, like the summer nexus. I know I've blocked it a little bit with my my drawing here, but you have like the summer nexus, the autumn nexus, the winter nexus, and I assume the spring nexus somewhere. Can't even see it. But so my idea for Karametra for her trial will be to. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really talk about the gimmick for Nylea. Hold on, let me just go back to that. The gimmick for Nylea in her temple would be that hold on, I'm reading what I've written here. Oh, yes, yes. So the idea was I was thinking the temple would have these specific bows that they would give the players. And they can't take these bows outside of the temple. They can only use them in the temple. And the thing is, again, I'm being a bit shameless with my inspiration here, but if you remember Legend of Zelda, if you remember things like fire arrows, ice arrows, things like that, these different bows that these players would get in this temple would shoot different types of those arrows, and they would use those things to solve puzzles. An arrow that creates water, an arrow that creates ice, creates fire, creates plants, creates anything, and you can use those against enemies that you'd find in the temple, or use them to solve puzzles in the temple, and that's the gimmick for that. Yeah, the real like creativity is what kinds of arrows you could exactly have and how they would work with certain enemies and certain things like that. But back to Karametra, once we're in Setessa, you have those nexuses that I showed you, summer, winter, spring, fall, and yeah, her challenge, I'm thinking that she doesn't necessarily have one temple. She's these four nexuses are going to kind of be her temples, sort of broken up into four. And I'm thinking that the players will have some sort of maybe like some sort of sacred seedling or something like that. That they have to put it in a pot and they have to cumbrously carry it to each one of the nexuses where it will grow. They have to take care of it, protect it against enemies, and bring it to these specific places where it will grow. And then once they've done it for all of them, the plant will grow and it will sprout a golden apple, inside which will be the chain. I think that'll be very Greek mythology inspired and work pretty well. So the next, from Setessa, we need to have them go to Neo-Lantan, and that is an incredibly long way. So I was imagining that Karametra would just teleport them there somehow. She has a again, I'm kind of I'm not like an encyclopedia on the lore, though I have read a bunch of it. Um, she has this Horn of Plenty in Setessa that is a portal of some kind. I don't remember if it's a portal that we could use for this specific purpose, or if we'll just have Karametra like teleport the players some other way. But either way, yeah, as a reward for completing our challenge, Karametra is going to teleport the players from Setessa to Neo-Lantan in some way. And then Neo-Lantan is where we get to our last couple chapters, because the next chapter would be on the goddess Pharika, the goddess of affliction. So the thing is, with Pharika, the main thing is she has a servant, a boss fight that would be great, that of a gorgon, um, that lives out somewhere in the Siren Sea. And so I was just imagining, so for Neo-Lantan, we're going to be there, and then we're going to have to sail out to the Siren Sea here, and to where this Gorgon's island is. What does she look like again? Okay, let me find her as well. Yeah, Hythonia is her name. Yeah, so she is going to be the boss fight for that chapter. She is also challenge rating 17. Pretty, but she's got, well, I mean, she has less of a challenge rating than Arasta, for example, but she's going to have followers around her as well because she leads a whole cult of alchemists on this island. So yeah, we're gonna. She is going to be the one who sort of keeps the chain in her layer, as you can see, of statues. The players are gonna have to challenge her for it. Um, the gimmick for that temple will be around based around alchemy. So I've been doing a bit of research in alchemy symbols, things like that, just for the purposes of using it for D&D purposes. And I'm imagining they're going to have to essentially that maybe the chain has been like mixed up into it has been separated into certain ingredients. The players are going to have to follow this very specific recipe for the very specific items. I'm also imagining it taking place in this grand, chemistry chamber with all these alembics and tubes, and the players have to turn cranks and try and decipher these weirdly written recipes with these symbols, and then they'll put all these ingredients in and essentially craft the chain again out of a potion that sort of, I guess, hardens and solidifies into the chain once again. Um, and yeah, and they'll have to fight Hythonia for that if they want to take it off the island. I'm not sure if they'll kill her, but even if they do, it doesn't really matter. Maybe they can or can't. It might depend. I mean, like if you're a worshiper of Pharika, for example, you're probably not going to want to. But if you are, or if you're a worshiper of someone who doesn't like Pharika, then you may want to. So it's up to the players. From there, they're going to have to sail back to Neo-Lantan, although I would like for them to take a different route. I know I just have a straight line here, but maybe they go. It would make sense too for how sailing actually works too. If they sort of went to this destination around these the Draka Isles one way and then back around the other way, and we can have some adventures maybe on those islands as they're going back around. And then when they get back to Neo-Lantan, that's when we start our last chapter on Thassa, the goddess of the sea, at which one we would be fighting Thromocratus for the chain. And the gimmick for fastest temple would essentially be the raising and lowering of water levels. Um, but I would like to have something a little bit better than that because the raising and lowering of water levels may not even like if we have a Triton player who can breathe underwater, then that immediately takes a lot of the challenge out of that. So maybe we have the raising and lowering of water levels, but there's some really dangerous things in the water, like dangerous eels and stuff that are just really hard to beat. So maybe that's the water possesses a little more of a danger there in that not so much the water itself, but what's living in it. And if that gets higher up, then well, eventually, then the eels will get you. If you're not standing in the water, then you're safe. That would be good. Um, yeah. And yeah, that would be all the chapters. So, the last thing I have here is this big white line, which I have marked as unknown. And that's because, yeah, basically that's what it is. I don't exactly know what would happen at this point, because at this point, the players would have all 15 chains. So what they need to do at that point is get to our next end destination here, the Nykthos, this nexus between the mortal world and the realm of Nyx, and that's where they perform the ritual to bind the Titans again. Um, and I was just thinking, like, as far as how they get from Neo-Lantern to there, it can kind of just be any way they want, really. Like if they, because the players will have done so much at this point. They'll have friends, they'll have like NPCs that they know. They might have mounts of their own. They might buy a ship at some point. I mean, why wouldn't you have to sail across all this way? So like, however they feel like they want to get there, that's up to them. I just like the most logical way probably would just be to get a ship and just to sail into the river. And so that's what I've marked out here. And then through the Skull of Vale, which is good because we haven't visited the Skull of Vale and where the satyrs live, which we really should. So we can at least squeeze that in this last part. Through this journey to Nykthos, we could really get a good sense of the destruction the Titan cults are causing, even just from the shore. Like we could see villages like Phala here burning as the Titan cult ravages the land. We could see a bunch of devastation across the landscape as we sail across here. And then we could go up the river, yeah, into the Skull of Vale, up to Nykthos, and around in that mountain range past the Phoenix Stairs here, I think is where we'd probably get our final boss, which would be either the Titan cult leaders or maybe even the Titans themselves. Although if the players are just going straight up against the Titans, they're not killing the Titans, they're just hurting the Titans and making them get out of their way so they can actually get to Nykthos and rebind them. Yeah, and that's it. I've been talking for a while, but there's still so much more to say, honestly. But that is just broad strokes my thought of how this is going to work logistically, as far as where we're actually going and how we're going to get there, and kind of what's going to happen when we get there. And yeah, we're going to be expanding on all of this in our many, many episodes to come. But until then, I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.